Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Wellness Process podcast. Here today to do a little solo Q&A with you guys, which I personally love doing this. I look forward to all recordings, but solos are just so chill for me and where I feel like I really thrive. And also, most importantly, I feel like I can actually answer the things that you guys are asking. So I feel like it's a win-win-win. Before I get into the amazing questions that you guys asked, and by the way, I always post like a Q&A box on Instagram when I do these. So keep your eye out for those. I love to hear from different people. I really tried to mix up the questions this time because I feel like I often get a lot of the same questions. And while I personally don't mind re-answering all of those questions, I do want to make sure that I'm getting enough variety for people that listen to most of my episodes and don't want to hear the same thing over and over again. So always keep your eyes peeled for those boxes so that you can submit and I can get your questions. And also, my DMs are always open. I really try to respond to everything. So, okay, couple of little updates on my end before we get into it. I just got back from a family weekend in Michigan, where I'm from. My parents bought a little cottage on a small lake that's like an hour from my hometown right after COVID. So it's been really nice to have that as kind of a place for all of us to get together. A lot of my family is in the Chicago area, so it's an easy drive for them. And we do this thing once a year, or we try to, called Cousins Weekend. And I'm very close with my cousins on my mom's side, my mom's sister. So her kids are very close in age to my sister and I, and we grew up basically like siblings. One of my cousins is only 10 days younger than me, so like very close knit. Every summer we would, our moms would rent a cottage somewhere in Michigan and we would all meet. So it's sort of like a thing that we've been doing for a very long time. However, because we are all now in our upper 20s and 30s, a lot of us are scattered sort of across the states. So it's hard. It's kind of like herding cats to get everyone together, everyone's work schedules, everyone's flights, etc. So I was really happy that we were able to do it this year, and also that I was able to bring Clayton, because last year for Cousins Weekend, which not everyone was in attendance for. Again, it's usually not like 11 of us, and this year it was 11 of us, which is really special. Last year, I was just telling everyone for the first time about Clayton, and I just remember being like almost annoyingly happy. Like I was impermeable. Like it was actually very unlike me because, as I talk about on here all the time, I'm the sensitive one in the family. People feel like I am always kind of, I don't know, being difficult and hard to please and all these different narratives that, we all have from our childhoods that we are actively working to not perpetuate. But I remember just running around talking about him, like beaming. He was FaceTiming me every day. It's so wild to, I keep having these moments where, because we met and got engaged so quickly, I keep having these moments of, wow, so much can change in a year and so much can happen. And I think that that's something that I try to explain and weave into these episodes a lot, because I know that so many of us, and myself included, are looking to change in different areas of our lives, whether it's career, your own personal development, relationships, love. You're looking to find the one. I'm here to tell you that truly you can do a 180 in a year, but it does require self-work and consistency, and also putting yourself out there in whatever area it is that you're looking to grow in. So anyway, I digress. We had an amazing weekend. We went on our super slow pontoon boat. It's a very different pace on this lake in Michigan, and I think that that's something that's really important to me. It's also how I grew up. So it just brings me this really nice sense of grounding and being home and being with the people that I grew up with. So it was really special. I got back on Monday morning. I took a 7 a.m. flight. I know this is really niche, but the Grand Rapids Airport is where I fly out of in Michigan. And I will just say, it is literally the greatest airport on the planet. Like, it's so small. Everyone is so Midwestern and nice. You get really used to, the East Coaster New Yorker vibe, especially in airports and being like yelled at and bossed around. And it's just a very different energy there. Everyone is wishing you a great day. They're trying to yap. I mean, it's really pleasurable. So, yeah, I was able to land here early Monday morning at like 8:30 a.m. and start the work week, and I'm feeling really good, feeling really busy. I'm heading out to the Hamptons this afternoon with some friends, and I'm actually like kind of working on a little work project. So, all good things. Very busy, running around today, back to back podcast episodes, but this is exactly what I've always wanted. And I think that I posted this reel the other day about enjoy being while becoming. And I think that really applies to so much of what all of us are trying to do, especially if you're listening to this podcast. It's likely that you are into sort of self-development and self-work and self-care. And let's just all take this as a reminder to also enjoy being while we are working on all of these different areas of our lives. And maybe you're not working on yourself. Maybe you're just really busy with work and you wake up and you kind of are wishing for the end of the day every day. Like, then what's the point, right? And I have to stop myself literally all the time. I was back to back yesterday. I had a work event that went till 8:30 p.m. and part of me just wanted to wish the day away and be on the couch eating my, loca nut or whatever I ordered and relaxing, but then what's the point? So, it's up to us to kind of really make that effort to enjoy just being in whatever moment it is. So, that's where we are literally right now. Okay. Let's get into the Q&A. I saw a million questions asking me about wedding prep, what I'm doing to prep for my wedding, which by the way is only in a couple of months, which is wild, absolutely wild, and actually probably less than a couple of months from when this episode comes out. So we're looking at weeks now. I am really trying to not let the idea of a wedding get in the way of how I view myself. I think that as someone who definitely has struggled with body image and just being really hard on myself and being a perfectionist, a wedding is something that could really cause that to flare. So I'm trying to be very gentle with it. Now, Clayton has also been very helpful in this because he's like, there's no wedding diets, there's no wedding prep. Like I will freak out if you don't look or seem like yourself at our wedding. And that includes hair, makeup, all of it. Like we are definitely going for a very natural vibe. And I love that, and it feels very relaxed, and it's honestly exactly what I've always wanted. That said, there are definitely some areas that I want to make sure I feel really good at the wedding. And rather than being in some sort of like crazy workout mode, look, it's okay to care about your body and to want to feel good in it, and that's definitely the energy that I'm emulating, but I'm trying to not be too fixated on that component. So what I'm really going for is kind of trying to focus on this glow. So whether that's, from the inside out with supplements and things I'm taking, or whether that's, the way that I'm taking care of my skin, I also just feel like, and maybe you guys can't relate, or maybe you can, but I feel like my glowiest, most vibrant self is generally the one that is just doing really well mentally. So, it's kind of this I'm just trying to take extra care situation. So let's talk about the actual things that I'm doing. One thing is red light therapy, which I try to do almost every morning. I discovered this when I got a red light mask and I threw it on when I had a 30-hour flight to Australia a couple of months ago. I was like, I'll just sit in this thing for 20 minutes. Like I have literally all the time in the world. And it did absolute wonders for my perioral dermatitis, which has kind of been like the last piece of my skin journey. I feel like I don't deal with the bumps and the acne and I had seborrheic dermatitis on my scalp that caused my forehead to break out and my hairline. And there's just been a lot of things. I definitely have done some solo episodes on my skin journey. So if you're interested in that, definitely check those out. But I threw this mask on and then I was like, oh, I kind of liked that. And I did it a couple of times on the trip and the perioral just slowly sort of faded away. Now there's several components that go into perioral, which maybe is an episode for another time, but I noticed this huge difference. So then I got a red light panel that I now sit in front of when I'm meditating in the morning. It's actually at our Hamptons house, so I haven't used it in the city in a bit, but there is a very much noticeable difference. Even if you don't struggle with perioral, the glow that I get and the evenness of my skin tone, honestly has been unmatched, and that's such an easy thing for me to incorporate daily that isn't high lift. So, I'm gonna be glued to my red light mask. I'm also consistently taking collagen. I think that I notice a huge difference in my hair, skin, and nails when I'm taking that. Again, a very easy sort of micro habit that I can put it in my overnight oats. I can put it in my matcha. I mean, I'm looking at my nails right now, which I no longer paint, which has just been a very great exercise of a more natural look. And they are so sturdy and long, it's insane, and I feel like it's been doing the same thing to my hair, which I've sort of been in a growing out phase for. So, collagen, red light, just eating whole, delicious foods. You guys know that's sort of my stance in general, but I definitely am someone who gets I'm just more sensitive to the things I'm eating, and if I'm eating out a lot, it tends to impact my gut, not in a severe way like it used to be. I think I'm way more resilient to this, and this has, been a big byproduct of all of the journal speak and sort of work on chronic conditions that I've done. But just the more vibrant and whole I eat, the better I tend to feel. So I'm definitely focusing on that a little bit more leading up to the wedding, not in a restrictive way, absolutely in a way that still incorporates dessert and bread and being able to enjoy a meal out and pizza and pasta and all the things, but just like, focusing on it a little bit extra because it genuinely feels good. I'm also taking Nutrafol, which I've spoken about a couple of times on here. I've had like some back and forth. I tried Wellbell, I tried Nutrafol. I ended up netting out at Nutrafol, and I just feel like it can't hurt when it comes to kind of my hair health. And I have a lot of breakage. I think it's probably from all of these slick backed buns, which I'm currently rocking right now. I'm trying to actually do that less leading up to the wedding in order to not have my hairline recede and like breakage and all the things. But yeah, I just figured that Nutrafol being in the pre-wedding mix is again low lift, easy for me to do, definitely works. Okay, skincare is an interesting one because I sort of had this revelation recently. I ran out of one of my creams, and so I was in the Hamptons and I was literally just using Elta MD AM lotion. So this is something that I discovered back in 2020 when my skin was raging with bumps and all the things, and I started seeing this amazing PA of dermatology in LA. Her name's Christy Kidd. And I started seeing her virtually, and she was like, less is more. Let's go back to basics. Let's just use literally one product because we can't afford to be messing with different, pore cloggers and things like that. So I discovered Elta MD-AM at that time, and it's kind of been like a consistent in my skincare, especially when I'm feeling flary or when my perioral is really bad. I just know that for me, and by the way, it might not work for everyone. Elta MD's like tinted sunscreen product makes me break out. So again, very like person specific, but for me, I've found this one to be a very safe, easy, moisturizing, not too crazy kind of product. So I was like in the Hamptons and I was only using that because it was all I had out there. And Clayton kept complimenting my skin, and I was like, "You know what? I haven't had, like, any pesky pimple or anything." Like, I usually have at least one thing pop up a week in general, and there had just been nothing, and I was like, "Maybe I just need to really be going back to basics." I feel like so many of us are piling on all of these serums and, like, the, like, super dewy, lengthy skincare routine is very in. Maybe it's not for everyone, you know? I certainly don't personally have that kind of skin where I can just slather a bunch of new products on and cross my fingers. Like, I will definitely have a breakout or a rash or a perioral or something from that. So, what I've decided in my wedding prep and most likely just in general is less is more. So, literally, I'm gonna list you exactly what I'm using right now. I think it's only like 4 or 5 products. I use Christy Kids cleanser. Amazing. Started using that 5 years ago during COVID. It's very pure and will not break you out. So we cleanse. I then use Biologique P50 Pigment 400. That is their like signature sort of exfoliating toner situation. I am not one to say that skincare has made a difference in my skin. This one, you guys, I look back even at my like 26-year-old skin, which is many, many years ago. It was not nearly as even or as, I don't even know the word, vibrant. Just, I don't know. There is a different glow and evenness and lack of like pigmentation and things that absolutely hands down happened when I switched to using P50 twice a day. So I cleanse, I put a little P50 on a cotton pad, I rub it all over my face. I then use my Linnae serum. I can't remember the name of it. It's bright orange. Amazing product. Also, I think with that little bit of like orangey tint, not that it's tinted for like tanning or anything, it just naturally has that color from the ingredients. It's like a very clean product. I put that on. It gives me just a little bit more radiance, a little bit more, I don't know, just like it just looks like my skin is more moisturized if I'm being super basic about my terminology. And then I throw my Ulta MDAM on, which again isn't like highly moisturizing, but it's super safe and it doesn't make me break out. And that's literally it. And if I'm working out, I'll use my clear stem spray just to sort of like, put the hypochlorous acid on and make sure that I'm not getting a lot of sweat in my pores and breaking out. And that's it, you guys. I mean, and by the way, everyone's like, what's your morning skincare? It's the same as at night. I don't have a different routine. And, I think it's fun to play around with things, add in eye creams. I like using an oil occasionally. But right now, I'm in like 6 weeks out from the wedding, really don't want to break out. My biggest fear is having a pimple in the middle of my face at the wedding. So we're going to try everything we can to keep things really basic. And that is literally everything I'm using right now. And I'm not experimenting with new makeup. I use my Bare Minerals Tinted Moisturizer. It's what I'm wearing right now. Someone was asking what shade. I'm wearing shade 7. In the winter, I'm a shade 6. In the summer, I'm a shade 7. It's like very simple. That's like my foundation and everything all in one just for like light coverage. And I'm not messing around with things. So I think that the net of this is less is more. And I'm hoping to kind of just like continue to carry that into post wedding because I think that we've all gotten a little caught up in all of the like layering things on our faces. And look, we all want to look like a glazed donut sometimes. But with my skincare, I'm just finding that the more I layer things in, the more I'm like accepting frequent breakouts where I don't necessarily need to be. Okay, so I also got a lot of questions on my workout routine, what I'm doing, as this pertains to the wedding prep, quote, or just in general. And yeah, everything I said earlier, I just want to reiterate because I'm not trying to necessarily change my body for this wedding. I just want to like look and feel my best. And right now, honestly, I'm in that place. So there's no changes that need to be made, but I am certainly just trying to feel good. And I feel good when I'm moving my body. It is just as much mental as it is physical for me, but it's also okay to aesthetically enjoy the results of a workout. I just want to be clear about that. So I've been treating myself to a few different things. And I would say like my gold standard best workouts that I see the most results from are things like BOA Studio with Chelsea DeLay, Steph Bertoncini. She teaches down at the WSA building. Those are my two like premium workouts that cost a bit more. Steph is $75 and Chelsea is $100 because you're essentially getting a private. I try to gift myself one of those like every other week. So it's not something I'm regularly doing, but I do notice that I'm honestly better off doing one of those instead of like 3 other workouts. So the price, while it's certainly high in premium, it definitely nets out if I just do that instead of workouts for a couple of days. And I really think that it's way more effective than a lot of places. So I do those. I also love sweating aggressively. So I will throw in like a Fuse House or an Align in Amagansett, which I've been taking a lot this summer. I love anything in a heated room that involves like ball bangles, light weights, a band, a ball. I think there's certainly a mental component to leaving a class like where you could wring your outfit out because it's so drenched in sweat. That does really good things for me. I believe in detoxing the body. And so I'll sprinkle 1 or 2 of those in a week. And then I also will do like a P-Volve, a Dance Body, a Soto method. I have my fitness app called Oro whenever I'm traveling or if I'm in the Hamptons and there's just not that many options out there. I will do that at home. And honestly, when I'm working out at home, it's like a 20 to 30 minute max. I was talking to a friend about this the other day. There's something about anything over 30 minutes when you're at home that just feels incredibly daunting. And then I get the fuck it's where I'm like, fuck it, I'd rather just not do anything. And then I'm almost like punishing myself, which is just a strange behavior. But Yeah, so I supplement that a couple of times a week. It's a really amazing platform that Dale and I created where we have hundreds of different instructors and methods, and honestly, I've done my fair share of trying out different virtual workouts just to sort of like, test the market, see what other people are doing. I always come back to Oro. So that has been a really big one. But like I said, P-Volve Dance Body Soto. I also keep ClassPass because sometimes I'll throw in a P-Volve on there or an Ave Pilates, just something where like, it's a good workout, even if I don't want like an insane sweat or a super challenging workout. So variety is key, but it's also about finding the places you like and sticking to those. So specifics of my workouts. I probably work out 5 days a week. I would say anywhere from like 4 to 7 days if I'm being really specific. Sometimes I don't take a day off because I'm just feeling really in my flow and I'm doing like 20-minute oros at home. And sometimes I take 3 days off or 4 days off a week. Sometimes I'm traveling. It really varies. I try not to be too strict about it, but I definitely do feel my best mentally and physically when I'm waking up a little bit earlier in the morning than I would like to, ideally like an hour. I'm meditating and then I'm working out before my day even starts. So that's like my best case scenario where I'm mentally and physically, I think, in my best shape. Not every day can be like that, but that's sort of the breakdown of what I've been up to lately and what I feel like I've been seeing the most results from. I also got questions about hairstyling and routine, and sort of what I've been doing there. And maybe this ties into wedding prep a little bit, but I think that I've just sort of taken a way more relaxed stance with my hair over the last couple of years. So I would say summer of 22, I stopped coloring my hair altogether. I have very porous hair, which is a weird thing to be diagnosed with, but essentially it takes on color, and my teeth are the same way, which is really interesting. I don't know why my body is so porous, but anyway, I my hair bleaches out really easily in the sun. So, when I was little, I used to have these like streaks down the front that were so intense that it looked like my mom had highlighted my hair. And it's just what my hair's always done. It's sort of like the money piece, right? That I feel like everyone has now been highlighting into their hair. And I think a lot of times with highlights, people are really just trying to emulate what kids' hair looks like in the sun. Because if you really look at kids that are like on the beach all day, their hair has the most beautiful natural highlights of anybody I've seen. So that's just a funny little aside. But I stopped coloring my hair because I was trying to emulate that exact, baby highlights look. And I found that it would look really good right away. I was seeing Jenna Perry. I think she's an amazing colorist, best in the city by far. I've tried a lot of people and had a lot of bad results. So she's definitely the best. But because my hair bleaches out so easily, I would go in the sun for like literally an hour and my whole head would look blonde. And, with my complexion, my eyebrows, my coloring, like I'm just not supposed to be blonde. I found that out the hard way by getting way too many highlights in my mid 20s. Looking back at those photos is very cringe. I think hair color blindness is a very real thing. And so basically, like 3 years ago, I started just not coloring it. And I had to go through an awkward period of growing those highlights out. And that looked definitely weird. So it does require a little bit of just trusting in the process. And I did that. And now I've just been in the sun. And I no longer have to be like, oh, do I have a hat to cover my highlights when I go in the sun? Like, it's just no fun. And now I'm like, the more my hair is in the sun, the better it looks. I still wear hats. Obviously, I protect my face where I can, but I've loved the result of it. And so it's also just allowed me to not be putting chemicals in my hair and bleaching it, which has, I think, helped with my hair health a lot. Like I mentioned, collagen and Nutrafol also really good for this. I also have kind of stopped using hot tools, and I've just really leaned into my natural hair texture and kind of what it does at the beach in the summer. And going in the ocean, honestly, I also have very slippery hair and it's very heavy. So I'm someone who cannot use conditioner at all. It will make my hair completely slicked to my head. I'm actually better with less washing it, ideally going in the ocean for a little bit of texture and doing less, which I know is not the case for everyone, but that's just my honest about what I've been doing for my hair routine. Going in the ocean, washing it minimally. I use a very simple shampoo. It's Raua. It's very clean. I use just their standard shampoo. and I wash it maybe like twice a week. I don't condition. And then I've been really exploring like salt sprays. So I use Raua's salt spray. There's another one with a blue bottle that I've been using that I'm now blanking on the name, but I've been really enjoying a salt spray. I think I've kind of figured out my hair after, 33 years on this planet. And I think we all have such unique hair and we all need our own systems to manage it and make it look our best and make us feel our best. But for me, it's again like with the skincare, it's less is more. And Clayton actually really doesn't like the way that hair that's been curled with a curling iron looks. And I'm realizing that I also don't. And I've just never really been able to properly nail that look of like looking like you haven't done your hair. I don't like when it looks done. And so he's really encouraged me to just let my hair go naturally. And I am so happy with that decision. I just think it's so much more chic to sort of have this air dried look, no nail polish, sort of like the Ralph Lauren vibe. That's what we're going for. And again, it's really helped my hair health. No coloring, no hot tools, and just kind of like letting it be in the sun. I feel like summer hair is actually my best hair. So that's sort of been my wedding prep and also just regular hair routine in a nutshell. Somebody asked, and I feel like I've made a couple of mentions on this about moving and my plans for our new home. I didn't even honestly remember mentioning it on here, but I will give a little life update that Clayton and I in the fall are going to be moving into a new apartment. Many of you guys know, but Clayton works in real estate. He co-founded the Hudson Advisory team with his partner, Stephen Ferrara. And so they are very in the weeds of New York real estate. And Clayton is obviously with his job looking at it every single day with clients for himself, just out of personal interest. And so he found this amazing apartment a couple of months ago. And we weren't really in a place where we were looking to move. We love our home. But I think that this place really makes sense for the next phase of our life, getting married, eventually having kids. It has a lot more space. I am lucky enough to have my own office area in that home. And so, yeah, we did it. And we're going to build this home together, which I'm really looking forward to. Our current apartment was Clayton's before I moved in. And so, yeah, we're like in the architectural process, making some changes. Honestly, the place is so beautiful and it doesn't need much work. And he and I both love that it's sort of this well done blank canvas for us to design. So we're making very small changes, like we're changing the island a little bit in the kitchen, maybe replacing some appliances. But other than that, it's honestly pretty turnkey. And so the fun part has been the design process and, designing it together, making it ours. Clayton is very into design and has an amazing eye. So it's been so fun to be a part of that process together. I'm designing my little office nook and workout space, which I think is going to be a game changer for me. I primarily work out of the home. And so it'll be really good to have an area where I can record podcast ads and record a podcast if I want to and, do my work sort of unobstructed. I've never had my own space for that within my home. So I'm really grateful, really excited. I think it'll be ours in the next couple of months, and then we're just going to do a little bit of work on it and then move in. So definitely by end of year, we'll be in there. And yeah, one thing I wanted to add on that is that when I was doing my To Be Magnetic Manifestation Challenge at the end of 2023, I guess it would have been. I think that's right. I don't know. Don't quote me. I honestly, years after COVID are all very confusing. Um, when I wrote down, and I wish I had my notebook with me right now, my future life, I specifically put in there that I wanted to live. I'm not going to name the exact area, but it's an area within the West Village. And I had listed a specific building that I really loved. I've loved it for probably 7 years. I've walked by this building and been like, that is the building I want to live in. The building that Clayton and I are moving into is 1 block south of that building. And in my opinion, it's actually an even better building. I just wasn't aware of it. So when I say get granular with your manifestations, don't be afraid to put cross streets. Don't be afraid to put a specific address. don't be afraid to get really freaking specific because I feel like the more specific you get, the easier of a time we have in actually visualizing and emulating the feeling of already having it. And that's truly what I did. I have walked through this area for many years before even knowing Clayton, before even knowing how much he loved the West Village. And I'm now going to own an apartment in that building. So I'm so shocked and also not shocked because this manifestation process has truly showed me the power of our beliefs, the power of our subconscious, the power of the way we wake up in the morning, the energy that we are putting out into the world. And yeah, it's all really happening. So I'm very excited about that next phase. Okay, so as I just brought up TBM, it's called To Be Magnetic. It was started by Lacey Phillips. I got a ton of questions about that as well in my Q&A box. And I also just want to mention that for those of you that are interested in learning more about that, and truly I credit this 180 that I've done in my life over the last year with work, with love, career, self-work, anxiety, just the way that I have been going about my life in a way that I truly never could have imagined when I was in my darkest place. I credit a lot of it to TBM. And if you're interested in learning more, I did an episode with Jessica Gill, who runs their podcast and is, very in the thick of all things TBM. She's like the best resource. She's really the face of TBM at this point. Lacey Phillips, I think, is kind of taking more of a backseat role, which is really cool. And I did a podcast with Jessica recently. So search for Jessica Gill if you want like a full podcast episode. And actually on my manifestation list, I had written down being asked to be on the TBM podcast. They do this thing called The Process, and it is basically like bringing on members of TBM who have had success with their manifestation results and talking through their story. And I've listened to these episodes for years and years, especially in my darkest moments. I find it very expansive to listen to other people's success stories to kind of pull me out of my rut and be like, they've been there and they've gotten to the other side. And so I can too. And Jessica just asked me to be on for one of their process episodes. So I'm really excited to see that manifestation come to fruition. And I can't believe that I'm on the other side of this, able to sort of talk about what I went through and how I've been able to manifest and hopefully inspire some people. So that's been really exciting. So for anyone that has TBM questions, that's where I would direct you. Something that somebody asked that kind of ties into this is around struggling with guilt over wanting success and abundance. And I relate to that so deeply because I feel like I've always been someone who's wanted to be really successful and who frankly likes nice things. And I think that unfortunately there is a lot of societal shame around wanting nice things. Through TBM, I've discovered that it's literally part of my authentic code to care about aesthetics and my environment and what I'm wearing and how I'm presenting myself. Like it's really just me being my authentic self. So doing their exercise to sort of come up with this authentic code has been a really good way to work through that. And the other piece is, and this is all TBM related, big shout out to Lacey Phillips and her team. Essentially, we manifest through our subconscious, right? So these programs that have been sort of like embedded in our brain throughout our life from different experiences, the way we grew up, all of that. And so if you have limiting beliefs around specific areas, I believe that it will be reflected in your reality. I personally had a ton of limiting beliefs around abundance, money, career, all of those areas. And I think it kind of ties into this person's question about success and abundance because if you have blockages, maybe someone said something to you when you were younger. Maybe you grew up a specific way that kind of talked down about people that were wealthy or, just there was a negative connotation around money. All of that is a part of your subconscious because of those experiences and growing up that way. And so it's really up to us to go back and rewire that subconscious programming. And that's what I think TBM does a really good job of is Lacey leads these things called deep imaginings, which are essentially like a self-hypnosis. And you go in and you bring basically up a lot of those memories and you're able to sort of like relive them in a different way. I know that probably kind of sounds weird. It really works. And it's landed me in a place where, like I said, I've realized that my love of aesthetics, my love of caring about the way that I present myself, of fashion, of honestly nice things, I've realized how authentic to me it is to want and to have and to care about those things. And so I no longer carry this shame around it. And I think it's honestly opened up the portal for me to have and receive more of those things and to make money to buy those things for myself. And so I just want to say to anybody that feels success around wanting shame and abundance, like, where does that come from? Is it society? Is it your family? Like, really getting to the root of that and then being able to work through it and honestly, hopefully land in a place where you realize that it's just your authentic self and there's absolutely no shame in your game of whatever your authentic self looks like. Okay, next question is I got a few around how I started my podcast and specifically one around overcoming self doubt and fear. So I really believe in trying something out before you have it perfectly dialed in, before you have every little duck in a row and, everything 100%. And that's very hard for someone like me who is a perfectionist and wants all the branding and the website and the everything to be perfect. But I never would have started any of the businesses that I have had I waited. So that's the first piece. Second piece is sometimes it's just trial and error. Sometimes you have to try something, figure out if it does or doesn't work, and then tweak it and maybe try something else. That is very much a part of the process. With Sweats in the City, which is my first baby, Dale and I tried several little mini businesses within the business that just didn't work out. And that's okay. Like, we had a meal delivery service at one point. There's been several things that we've given a try, we've given it our all, and it just hasn't worked. And it's always been redirection into what does work. But I will say that now that I've had success with Sweats in the City and with Oro and now the podcast, that also, back to rewiring your subconscious, teaches you that you can do it and that it is possible. But the only way to have that revelation and be able to create that momentum is by starting the damn thing. So whether it's a new business or a product, or maybe you want to start influencing, I got a couple of questions on that. What you have to do is just start and know that you will be redirected if there is a redirection that's necessary. I also just want to add that, with this podcast, I have been doing it for about a year, and I think it's like a year and 4 months or something like that. It has had substantial growth in a short period of time. And obviously, a big part of that is having started Sweats in the City, having that existing community. So I will not downplay that. But I will just say that I had a little bit of a rocky start. Not all of this has been 100% seamless. I started a different podcast initially with a friend, and it didn't work out. And honestly, that was really painful for me. I had this grand idea of us having this podcast that was all about women's health and this sort of like shared journey of chronic pelvic pain. And that was very much at the root of my mission. And when it didn't work out, I was so confused, so down about the business partnership not being the right fit. And that could have derailed me. But I felt this momentum inside of me that, like, there's actually, again, like I said, with trial and error, when it doesn't work out, there's often a reason. And then that allows you to pivot and redirect. And that's exactly what I did. And so I was like, okay, how can I turn this very strong passion and mission into something else? And not only that, but something else that fits my new purpose. My purpose was no longer talking about chronic pelvic pain and antibiotics and pelvic floor physical therapy and Lyme disease in that capacity. It really pivoted more into the mind-body medicine route and not having everything I talk about be pain and endometriosis and all of that. And of course, there is so many amazing guests that I brought on for all of these topics, but it's no longer at the root of my mission, if that makes sense. The root of my mission is very different. And had I not given that a try and failed and had to pick myself back up and pivot, this all wouldn't exist. So my message to anyone that is, kind of dealing with self-doubt and fear, especially around career, like, first of all, give it a go. It doesn't have to be perfect. Know that you might fail and know that that is a way to sort of reinvent yourself, try something new, and that you truly can't miss out on what's for you. I say all of this knowing that it's hard. And also transparently, I put a ton of money into this podcast in the beginning. more than I was comfortable with. I kept telling people like, this is a really expensive hobby. I'm loving what I'm doing and I'm loving that people are picking up what I'm putting down, but it's costing me a lot of money. And so I also just had to trust in that process. And now, transparently, the podcast is very profitable and I'm able to hire people and bring people on to edit my videos and to start my YouTube channel. And it's starting to really thrive. And that feels really good. But none of that would have happened had all of that, you know, prior experience, failures, things that have led me to exactly where I am. Okay, so someone asked about social situations and drinking and how I handle them. I have a very good relationship with alcohol, and I just want to say that I'm very lucky to have never dealt with any issues with that. So I will preface with that. I will say that when I've been in my desperation, I need to heal eras, and I don't fault myself for this approach at all, but I have really kind of tried to weed so many things out of my life during those times to make myself feel better. And it all comes from a place of literally just wanting to feel better. Being sad and sick is very hard, and we will do anything to feel better in those moments, right? So I've done, the super restrictive diets where you weed everything out. I've done crazy supplement routines. I've done months of no drinking because I was afraid of the inflammation from the drinking. Let me be clear, alcohol is poison. And I talk about this at a little bit more length in my episode about wellness truths that might hurt your feelings, a solo I recently did. Alcohol is not great. I think anyone that tries to spin it into a positive thing, it just isn't. That said, I leave room and I leave flexibility in my 80/20 to enjoy a cocktail when I want to. Now, 8 times out of 10, I don't want to. I did not have a single drop of alcohol this weekend at Cousin's Weekend, and it's just because it didn't feel good and I didn't like the options. And to me, you're never going to find me drinking a White Claw because I want to have a cocktail in my hand. I'm only going to drink something that's delicious. It's literally a spicy skinny margarita or a really nice glass of red wine. And to me, I'm just not going to do anything in between because those are my preferences. You also will never find me having more than 2 cocktails in one night, ideally one, because I personally cannot afford to have a hangover. My baseline, I'm very lucky to have gotten it to an amazing place where I wake up and feel good most days. And I really don't like doing things that I could have prevented to decrease that baseline in any way. So I'm very cognizant of not having hangovers. My mental health is way too fragile for that. Again, I can't afford it. But in situations where I am choosing not to drink, which I think is what this person was a little bit more so asking about, I really just think that I keep in mind how I want to feel in the morning when I'm making that decision. And I also take stock on how my mental health is at that time. If I'm in my luteal phase, you can 9 times out of 10 count on me not having a cocktail because again, like I'm just a little bit more fragile. I know myself very well and I know that I can't afford to go from waking up feeling like a 9.5 to really feeling like a 4 or a 5. Like I just don't have the capacity for that. So I feel very confident in my decision not to drink when I do because I'm so anchored in the end result and knowing that I have a workout in the morning I want to feel good for, or I have an important meeting, or I just know that my mental health isn't in the best place and it's not something I want to mess around with. So I would say that really looking at your reasoning behind the why is very important. And this goes for all habits. I spoke about this recently, but even with working out, if your why is just weight loss, weight loss, weight loss, being skinny, I need a specific body, like it's very hard to come back to that habit every day versus when it is grounded more in, I want to genuinely take such good care of my body. It is my temple. This is my form of self-respect. This is my form of self-care. This is about my physical health and appearance, yes, but it's also about my mental health. That is reasoning that brings you back to a habit. And I think that also applies to drinking. So having confidence in those settings, not allowing other people's voices to get to you. I think there's this really weird thing that happens where when people are drinking, they know it's not a great thing to be doing, especially if they're drinking a lot, and they want others around them to also engage in it because it makes them feel better and it makes them not feel alone in that habit. I think that's a thing that definitely happens. So just noting that and kind of just being above that and not needing that. And also for me at least, honoring when I do want the cocktail because sometimes I do and I'm not into deprivation, restriction, extreme rigidity, like, I just feel like it doesn't get us very far. So that's sort of a long-winded answer, but I have a lot of thoughts on alcohol, and I feel like I've landed in a really good place where I no longer feel like I need to be sober and that needs to be a part of my identity. It sort of reminds me of, like, veganism and feeling like, "Ooh, I need to, like, not eat meat because that's what people are doing." Like, I think we can develop these habits based on our own personal belief system and what feels best for our bodies. Okay, you guys, I had more questions written down, but I'm really trying to keep these episodes not too lengthy because I don't want to lose you guys. So I will end it there. I will put those questions into the next solo Q&A. Again, please submit your questions. I love hearing from you guys. And thank you so much for listening. I hope everyone has a beautiful rest of the week.